So sometimes I want to add things to an AngularJS application that my product team doesn't necessarily want to add. So it got me thinking about whether or not I can use parts of the Angular runtime to augment the runtime outside of the main code base. And I did a little research and I found this gist by Felix Moshev that pointed out that as of AngularJS 1.6.7, there's now this new loadNewModules function, which does basically just that. It allows us to augment the runtime injector after the application has been bootstrapped. And what you can see here is I'm reaching into the active document, I'm getting the injector for the current AngularJS application, and I'm calling loadNewModules, and I'm giving it a collection of modules to load into the currently active injector. So I wanted to see if I could use this to power a proof of concept where I take a directive, load it into the AngularJS runtime after the bootstrapping, and then get that directive to be itself bootstrapped and active within the application. So I created this JavaScript file here, which defines a directive I'm calling lazy POC, POC standing for proof of concept. I'm going to pull in this fake CSS module compiler, which is part of the existing page, the existing AngularJS application. And then I'm just going to give it a very simple directive template. All it's going to do is echo the URL that the user is currently on. And here's the controller that I'm associating with that directive. And what you can see is I'm just listening for the location change success, and I'm reapplying the URL. Now, the nice thing about loadNewModules is it will also iterate through the config and run blocks so that I can initialize it. So you'll see that I'm going to output the fact that this module has been lazy loaded into the application. You can see that I'm pulling in the config. That's from the existing runtime injector. I'm outputting the project name, the share key, and then I'm going to compile my lazy POC element. That's the lazy POC directive here. And I'm going to inject it or append it to the body. And then I call apply async to make sure that the change detection runs immediately on that component. So let's jump over into the browser, and you can see that I have an InVision share link here. It's super simple. And I have a bookmarklet that will add this lazy POC. And let's just take a look at what that does. That is a JavaScript value, and all it's going to be using is the existing jQuery on the page to load the script for my feature page. And I have it hosted here on a GitHub pages so that I could just have it remotely hosted for the testing. And let's jump back here and let's do bookmarklets, share lazy POC, and you can see here's the console logging that we have. If we look at the network and we jump all the way down to the bottom, here you can see that my feature.js file was being loaded from GitHub. And here is the directive, and if we inspect, we can see here's my lazy POC directive, and it is, in fact, updating as I move around. If I switch to different modes, so there you see. So what we have is this directive here being fully integrated, more or less, depending on how hard you squint, into the existing AngularJS application after that module was lazy loaded from a remote URL. So obviously there's a far cry between this proof of concept and actually lazy loading a externally developed feature into an existing AngularJS app, but certainly this has given me a lot of food for thought, and I'm sure you'll be seeing more experimentation around this very concept in the near future.